Well, we'd like to start out by having you introduce yourself and give us a little information about where you were born, where you grew up and went to school, and if you were anything you'd want to share about your family or how you got interested in law.
My name is Foster Ockerman. I was born in a little hamlet called Greens Chapel in Nelson County, Kentucky in 1920. And my father and mother both came from that area there. My father was R.F. Ockerman. My mother's maiden name was Anna Clary Sweezy. And shortly after I was born, my father had been a school teacher and a farmer, decided he would enter the ministry. So we moved to Wilmore when I was 2 years old. He went to Asbury College in the seminary. And then we moved from there back to a little area called Woodlawn after he'd gotten his degrees, and stayed there 4 years. And the Methodist Church at that time would only let a minister stay one place no more than 4 years. So we then lived in Stanford, Kentucky, and then Middlesboro. And my father went to Corbin, and at that time I had been working for a construction company and going to Lincoln Memorial University, and then finished my second year of college. And then went to the University of Kentucky in 1939, and then the war came along, and so that's a brief history.
Well, what was your interest in going to law school? Why did you choose that as a profession?
I don't know. I'd always just been interested in the law. My father, when he discovered that I had an interest in going to law school, didn't necessarily approve, because he didn't understand exactly that lawyers would be on one side or another, and that he didn't always approve of which side they were on. So he didn't encourage me very much, but I plowed on anyhow. I came here, as I said, as a junior at the university in 1939. At that time, you could let your senior year of college count as your first year of law school count as your senior year of college. So I finished my first year of law school in '41, and also got my degree from the university in 1941. Then December 7, 1941 came along, and I was in my second year of law school. In February of '42, I went to Louisville and joined the Navy in the V7 program. And there was what I thought was an old petty officer that had all those gold hash marks on his sleeve. And he probably was 30 years old, but anyhow, we got down to the last part, and he said, "Well, when do you want to go in service?" And I said, "Well, what are my choices?" And he said, "We have a class in April, June, and August." I said, "Well, I'd like to go in August, because then I can complete my second year of law school, which after that time, you could take the bar after 2 years." So I took the bar exam, and sure enough, I got called in August. And so I went to Notre Dame University for 2 weeks, where I graduated into the category of a midshipman. And then I went to the downtown campus of Northwestern University for 3 months. Then to Melville, Rhode Island, a little place between Providence and Newport, to Motor Torpedo Boat Training School, where I met John Kennedy. Incidentally, he was an instructor there. And then I came back home on leave in October of '42, after I had finished my course at Motor Torpedo Boat PT Training School. And on the way to the Pacific, I stopped in Frankfurt and was sworn in to be an attorney in October of 1942. which has been some time ago, incidentally. So I went on out in the Pacific, in the Ellis Islands and the Solomon Islands, where I ran into Kennedy again. We were both in the Solomons at the same time, and the Green Islands. Then I came back and was an instructor at the Motor Torpedo Boat Training School for a while. Then to New York, where we put a new PT squadron together. And we went in divisions of 4 boats each to the Panama Canal. First by we went under our own power to Cape May, New Jersey, Morehead City, North Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, Jacksonville, Florida, Miami, where we had a shakedown, and to 2 places in Cuba, one of them being Guantanamo Bay, and then on to Kingston, Jamaica, then to Barranquilla, Colombia, South America, Cartagena, Colombia, and then through the canal, where they loaded our boats on tankers or merchant ships, and we went to the Philippines on the second time out. And that's where I was when the war ended.
Whoa. Well, that was quite a career just just in the Navy.
Well, for a young person it was.
Yeah, I got to see a lot of the world, it sounds like. Well, after the war was over, you came back to Lexington?
I did. When the war ended, the PT boats were wooden boats. And a lot of them were older, so we pulled most of them up on the beach and stripped them and then set fire to them. So I went on a PT tender, which was a service vessel for the PT boats. And I was executive officer of the tender. And we were in the Philippines, and we had orders to take the ship to New York to decommission it. And that being halfway around the world from New York, we decided we'd try to go back through the Suez Canal. Well, all we did was succeed in delaying our departure from the Philippines for about 4 or 5 months. So we left the Philippines going to New York through the Panama Canal. I took over command of the ship in Pearl Harbor. And then we went on to California for a while, and then to Panama. I was reporting into duty to the commander of the Panama Sea Frontier when I met a fellow that I knew on the beach. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm on my way to New York." He said, "What's your ship?" And I told him, USS Orestes. Oh, he said, "That ship is going back to Oakland." I said, "Oh, I don't want to do that." So I went back to the ship, reported in by radio to St. Lant, then went back and reported into the Commander-in-Chief of the Panama Sea Frontier, and he said, "Well, you get your passage right through the canal." I said, "Well, he can't. I'm already under the jurisdiction of the Atlantic Sea Frontier." Well, he said, "We'll see about that." About 3 or 4 days, I got a message to come to his office. So he said, "You're going to Oakland to decommission this ship." And I said, "Well, I need provisions and fuel." And he said, "By the time you get out to your ship, they'll be putting fresh water and provisions and fuel on, and there'll be a tug come up at 1600, and you'll be on your way to Oakland," which was what happened. So then I decommissioned the ship in Oakland, California, and then back home.
Oh, okay. And then when you got back to Lexington, did you start your law practice then, or did you go back to?
No, I had not received my degree, and I figured that after 4 years in the Navy, I had forgotten everything that I learned in the first 2 years in law school. So I went back and got my degree in a refresher course for the last year. But while I was in law school the last year, I became associated with Hogan Yancey and Bill Martin, and that's where I ended up with them after I graduated.
Okay. What are your early memories of starting out in the law and in the courtroom, and what type of practice did you have at
Well,
the
you
beginning?
don't just jump into the courtroom when you start practicing law. Hogan and Bill were real estate attorneys, and I began to get involved in that. And then, as time progressed, I got interested in politics and helped form a city commission. That was before merger. Helped form a city commission. We ran a ticket of 4 city commissioners. We had the commission consisted of the mayor and 4 commissioners. We were successful in getting 3 of them elected. And then I ended up being attorney for the city for about 9 years, chief counsel for the city of Lexington. And we were involved in annexation, which was a great subject in those days, and a very difficult type of a case to win, and we were unsuccessful. And later, of course, we came the merged government. During that same period of time in the 50s, I served 3 sessions in the Kentucky legislature in the House of Representatives, 54, 56, and 58, which is a very enlightening experience. I was, Governor Weatherby was the governor when I went to Frankfort, and then Chandler got elected in 1956 and 58. My side of the political fence was the Clements side, and so when Chandler was there, we had what's called a group of rebels. So it was very interesting, the 2 years under Chandler. And then after that, I was active in Governor Combs' campaign, and took a position with him as Commissioner of Motor Transportation for 3 years, by which time I carried on my practice during the same time. And then I was trying to generate a campaign to be a candidate for governor. Got mentioned a lot of times, but you know, politics is a peculiar world, and you don't control everything that goes on it, and others do primarily. So I ended up after that managing Ned Breathitt's campaign, who was another person at that time was interested in being a candidate, as well as Breckinridge, John Breckinridge, and others. And so I managed Ned's campaign. We won the primary and defeated Chandler's candidate, and defeated Chandler, as a matter of fact. And that was something that people thought never could happen. But we did, and then I came back home and started practicing law again.
Well, that sounds like you've had a huge amount of experience in a short amount of time here to have had the Navy and then the political experience too. Now, did you stay involved in politics after you came back after that, or? Yes,
I was active in other campaigns, but I never was elected to any other office. But I was very active in politics until just a few years ago, when I decided that the younger people needed to do that.
So you've seen a lot of changes in Lexington then in the years that you've been here. Are there any that stand out in your memory as being?
Well, I think that one of the most interesting things for this community is the merged government. We merged the city and county government, and I was active in that campaign. I was not a member of the committee that helped write the charter, but I was very active, and Foster Pettit had been mayor of the city when the merged government came along. He ended up his term as the first mayor of merged government. I think that's one of the most interesting experiences and been very beneficial to this community.
It seems like that triggered a lot of growth in Lexington.
Well, it made government more efficient. It made government a little bit more expensive because it carried on a much greater activity. During the time that Lexington was growing and the city was not able to grow, we had suburbs all around the city, and the city was restricted, and this sort of solved that problem and made government much more efficient.
Just some of your memories of the legal community in Lexington. How did lawyers treat each other when you were starting practice?
Well, I think there's much more camaraderie then than now. One of the reasons, of course, was that there were much fewer attorneys than there happen to be today. But we had motion hour every morning, Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. We had motion hour. We had only one circuit judge, Judge Chester D. Adams. So most all of the attorneys went to motion hour, whether they had a motion hour to be heard or not. And Judge Adams would go all the way around the room and say, Mr. Ockerman, do you have any motions today? And you'd say, no motions, Your Honor, or you had one, whatever. And in that manner, you got to know every other attorney, and got associated with them. And I knew most all of the attorneys at the bar here in Fayette County after 3 or 4 years, and certainly I can't say that now.
Were you very active in the Fayette County Bar Association in the early years, or did you
I was
move
president,
into
I believe, in 1954, and incidentally, we elected the bar members at motion hour. The Fayette County Bar Association held its annual meeting at motion hour, and I was elected vice chair, vice president, and then president, I believe, in 1954.
What sorts of activities did the Bar Association have in those days?
Certainly not as active and not with as broad a scope as they have today. Most of my year as Fayette County Bar Association was taken up with an effort to disbar an attorney. And the way we did it in those days was to have a committee. That's one way. You have a committee of your local bar association to make an investigation, bring the charges, and then it would be referred on up the line, so to speak. And we were successful in that occasion in having the attorney suspended. But that took a tremendous amount of time and effort, and almost my whole year as a member of the president of the bar.
Did attorneys perform much in the way of pro bono work in those days?
Well, that depended on what the circuit judge would want to do. I got immersed in and dipped into some criminal practice early in the game on pro bono work. You didn't get paid anything for it. The judge would appoint you, and you felt like it. And people took the chore without any hesitation, and so that's a lot different now. People are paid to do most of the work. But on the other hand, attorneys were much more active, I think, in community affairs. They led campaigns for various events and organizations. I at one time was campaign chairman in a fundraising event for the American Red Cross, and that is one way you began to get known as an attorney, by the activity in public affairs.
I would think that you would be well known in the community with all the things that you were involved in. What changes have occurred in the law during your practice, how have these changes affected the way we practice law in Lexington?
Well, I think there are two areas. One, the legal profession has grown to the point that either you have to be specialized or you have to be in a large firm. When I started, Stahl, Keenan, Muir, Townsend, Park, Money, and Davis was the largest law firm in town. They had 6, I believe that is, partners. And then Charlie Landrum and Bob Houlihan became associates, and that was the 2 that they had, and that was the biggest firm in town. Harbison, Kessinger, Lyle, and Bush was the 2nd largest. And but then, as everybody knows nowadays, they've grown to multi-city associations, and the practice, I think, is very specialized. On the other hand, when I started practicing law with Bill Martin, he wouldn't even carry a card saying attorney at law because he felt like that was advertising. On the contrary, you see the television nowadays, people are advertising, and you don't know whether they're specialists, well educated or not. And of course, we've had currently some people that have been charged and suspended from practice, primarily those that engage in advertising. And I'm 100% against advertising. I just don't think you should. I think there's other way to do it. If you do a good job, the community largely will know about it after a period of time.
Do you have any I was there stories that you were present when well, you mentioned the merger of the city government, but was there other events in Lexington that you recall?
Well, one thing that I'd mentioned Kennedy earlier. After I managed Breathitt's campaign for governor, we were here in Lexington and walking down the street in front of the old Phoenix Hotel in 1963, and John Irvin came up and he said, Kennedy had just been shot. And I said, oh, John, quit pulling our leg. He said, no. He said, you go up to WVLK, the radio station, that's on top of the Phoenix Hotel there. Go up there and you'll find out. So that was, having been associated with Kennedy and knew him. Matter of fact, I was in the Oval Office one time when he had invited us up there after we had been successful in the gubernatorial campaign. And sure enough, Kennedy had been shot. Now that's one of the most shocking things, I think, that happened that I can recall. There's many other things that happened, but I don't recall them specifically.
What advice would you give to young lawyers?
Well, people used to come in and ask me as they were seniors in law school, and we've gone through another transition. You didn't have law clerks and you didn't have paralegals, but people, as they got in their senior year of law school, would try to make some association with a law firm to get a little experience, particularly if they were going to stay in Lexington. And the transition has been remarkable. We didn't have continuing legal education. As I said, we didn't have paralegals. People used to come in the office and I'd say, well, there's a newfangled thing that going on now, that computers. I said, you ought to get educated on computers. Well, I never thought that we would see what we have now with all of the mechanical devices we have, and to the point that now if you want to go to the bankruptcy court, you have to learn how to file on their system and use the email type system to file pleadings. Same with the Public Service Commission. And so that's one thing that you must know now, or you're a little bit behind the curve.
Yeah, that seems to change daily on the computerized stuff. What are the biggest challenges facing the legal profession today? Are they similar to what were being faced when you started practicing?
Well, I think we're always concerned about our reputation. It is not as good as it used to be when I was younger. And I think advertising has had one effect, that people see the ads, and we used to call people ambulance chasers. Now when the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that they were entitled to advertise, well then some take major advantage of it, and most do not. And I would like to see more regulation of advertising, particularly.
Well, are there any other stories or memories that you'd like to share? We've pretty much gotten through all the questions I had, so if there's any particular thing that stands out in your memory?
Well, you know, I've been playing tennis for a number of years, and I have learned one thing particularly over my long 86 years, that age doesn't improve your tennis game. But other thing, no, I don't know that I have anything. You know, the stories that you like to tell about people, we have names and places, and most of them you shouldn't tell, so I'm not going to engage in that. People have written books about all the funny things that happened in the courtroom and all of that, but I'll let them write their books, and I won't try to compete with them.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. I think that concludes our interview.
All right.